please subscribe and don't forget to press the bell icon to get notified whenever we upload a new video.
Well, back home on the Lal Street, the market ended close to a 3-week high level. The Nifty crossed the 10,800 mark intraday, but could not sustain at that high level at close. In fact, at close, it just ended with a gain of around 84 points. The Sensex too gained around close to 300 points in trade. The banking index ended with a gain of 0.5%, while mid-caps outperformed yesterday with gains of over 0.5%. But how are the Qs stacked up for trade? Manglam, tell us more.
Well, Anisha, there's been a smart recovery on the last four trading sessions. In fact, Nifty has bounced about 220 points from June 5th low of 10,550, which incidentally on that day was also the 50-day moving average. So strong technical support, and then the markets bounced back from that. The mid-caps, they've bounced for 3 sessions in a row. In fact, they've outperformed the frontline indices for 3 sessions in a row, and that usually happens when the street believes that maybe the downside on the frontline indices are protected. Yesterday's session was interesting in the sense that the Nifty Bank, that one gave up about 250 points in the last hour of trade. And perhaps that could be on account of the weekly options expiry, given that we went into trade with the maximum open interest at 26,500 call. That mark was taken out, so those calls were covered. And then we saw a lot of writing at the 26,500 put. That means that was a bit of support. So we saw a correction of close to around 250 points from the highs and support at the 26,500 mark. As far as the data is concerned, this up move has caused a lot of short covering. So the FIs yesterday bought about 7,330 crores in index options. Of course, this number is also exaggerated because of the Nifty Bank weekly options expiry. But if you take a look at the internals out there, there was close to around 28,000 short calls which were covered and close to 11,000 long calls which were added. So yes, there was some fear as far as the up move is concerned. But did that subside, or did that continue into the cash market by the FIs? Well, not, because they sold about 525 crores. But there's nothing to worry about. The domestic institutional investors, they've pumped in 1,200 crores, and that is what perhaps explains the outperformance that we're seeing in the mid-cap index. In fact, in FY19 so far, the FIIs have sold about 20,600 crores. If you add the HDFC Bank, if you take the HDFC Bank buying of close to around 2,000 crores back, they've sold a little more than 20,600 crores. And the domestic institutional investors, they've gone ahead and bought 25% more than what the FIIs have sold. And that is something which was reflected in the MF data that came in as well. So the mutual fund inflows, after falling, have recovered month on month from 16,000 crores in April to about 17,430 crores in March. The SGX Nifty indicates a downtick, but let's see what happens in today's trading session. The most important thing I'll be watching out for is yesterday's high of 10,818. We gave up from those levels. Let's see whether we go ahead and see those levels or not, because if that happens, then there is a case that opens up for the May 15 Karnataka elections high of close to 10,929. At the lower end, we have support coming in at 20-day moving average, as well as the maximum open interest in puts, which is the 10,600 mark.
Okay, so good news coming in for the bulls. The DIIs continue to pump in the money, and it is also reflected in the MF data. But Manglam, you told us about the market cues. Any specific stocks that you're watching out for? A
fair amount of stocks, Anisha. I mean, it is thin, but among the stocks that we are watching out for, let's keep an eye out on the public sector banks, primarily because, you know, the interim finance minister will be meeting the PSB chiefs today in Mumbai. So I will watch out for a lot of the public sector banks, more importantly, the 11 banks which are under prompt corrective action. In addition to that, we have a Morgan Stanley note coming in on SBI as well. They're overweight on the stock with a target of 340, so keep an eye out on that. From the banking space, also watch out for IDBI Bank and Federal Bank, because now they have to reply to Max Life's letter raising concerns on the deal today. This is something that Analjit Singh himself told us yesterday. Sharda Cropchem, there was some fund action. Goldman Sachs India Fund has sold close to 1.5% equity in the company in yesterday's trading session. Quality, remember we spoke to the management, the stock is down about 80% since September, and now this stock has entered the additional surveillance measure list, ASM list, with effect from today. Time Technoplast, they keep on launching new products, so they've launched another new product as well. Let's see how big this is in terms of their business. The stock was up 9% in yesterday's trading session, so let's see how much of that is also priced in. IIFL Holding, their real estate arm, receives a certificate of registration from SEBI to carry out REIT activities. This could be one of the diversification opportunities as far as their business is concerned. Adani Transmission, the promoters have pledged close to 8.8 crore shares. Omax Auto, they've announced capacity expansion would require 100 to 120 crores for this. Capital First has raised capital via debentures, 100 crores thereabouts. And finally, Vakrangi, for whatever it's worth, the company has finally said that the board will meet on June 14th to consider Q4 FY18 results.
Okay, interesting to see what comes out of that particular board meeting. But here is an important information for all our viewers. Catch the business and financial news on the go, and you can listen to all the market cues and stocks and news ahead of trade today on our latest offering, the podcast, only on CNBC TV18.com. Well, Interim Finance Minister Piyush Goyal is in Mumbai today and will be meeting heads of several public sector banks. Now, this will be the first meet that the Finance Minister will be holding with the public sector banks after their fourth quarter earnings. Ritu Singh joins us with more details on that. Ritu, good morning. Tell us what can be expected from today's meeting.
Piyush Goyal, who has the interim charge of the Finance Ministry until Arun Jaitley is back in office, will be meeting with the heads of public sector banks today in Mumbai. We do understand that the meeting is being hosted at the State Bank of India headquarters in Nariman Point, and several bank heads, including those from Mumbai-based banks and several other heads from banks that are headquartered in southern India, are expected to be at the meeting. It is a day-long meeting where the FM will be taking stock of the bank's progress, after they've reported their fourth quarter earnings. We understand that on the agenda is the discussion on the roadmap for banks, 11 banks that are under prompt corrective action from RBI, to ensure that there's no credit flow constraint in those banks. Also on the agenda will be risk governance, something that has been the focus for the banking industry for quite some time since the emergence of the frauds, in these public sector banks. So those are the key items on the agenda. There is a possibility of mergers also being discussed, but of course all of that will be known later in the day when Piyush Goyal will be holding a press conference at the State Bank of India headquarters at 4 p.m.
Okay, that's one important meeting that we will keep an eye on for you. But moving on, after a slew of auditors exited companies in recent months, the government is looking at the matter on a case-by-case basis. Now, this was confirmed by the Corporate Affairs Secretary in J.T. Srinivas. Speaking to CNBC TV18, Timsi Jaipuria, Srinivas said that the centre will surely intervene if the auditors fail to provide adequate reasons for quitting a company.
For listed companies, you have added sort of regulatory layers, and SEBI is the foremost regulator who looks at the listed companies very closely and very intently. And for such intermediaries, who are there as big actors and who are influencing the investment decisions of the minority investors, they can also look into it. They also probe into it. But as far as we are concerned, appointing an auditor is the prerogative of the company. It will have to be endorsed by the shareholders. And if the company, after appointing, wants to remove, then not only the shareholders' resolution is required, you also need to take prior approval of the government. If an auditor is leaving the company of his own accord, then he basically will have to... The auditor wants to, abruptly sort of terminate the contract and leave the audit. Very often they may say it's a personal reason. Now the issue is, how intrusive will you be? How much would you like to really find out about the case? Exactly. There could be a large number of small companies also. But if they give a reason which is inadequate or does not explain, and a huge element of public interest is involved, certainly the regulators would look into such cases and would seek further clarifications from such, from the auditors who have resigned abruptly.
So have you already approached the auditors of Manpasan, that is ex-auditors Deloitte? Are you seeking some questions?
That is a standard, there's a standard operating procedure. It will be very difficult, details of each case, but it's a standard operating procedure. If there are public complaints, and more so from the investors, and the grounds given by the auditor to abruptly give up audit are inadequate, then there is a need to inquire into the matter and to go to the bottom of the matter.
You've already started acting in the case of Manpasan? Because investors have already approached you.
No, I think the process has begun.